I really believe fundamentally that sales is all about relationships. People buy, or at least they prefer to buy, from people that they know, they like, and they trust. So that's all about relationships. That's all about getting to know people, connecting with people, understanding people, reading people, between the words, the lines, the energy behind everything, right? And really understanding. So I think that's a fundamental sort of cornerstone around selling. I think we all have to remember that. And the first thing you sell is you, right? And actually the first person you sell to is yourself. I think self-confidence, self-belief in what it is that you have to offer, whatever that might be, is the absolute foundation from which your sales success is built upon. If you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe in what you're doing, and you don't fundamentally believe that what you're offering is of service and of value, then you should just stop selling it right now. Because that's just a setup for a disaster. At the end of the day, this is all about being of service, right? And that's what sales is all about. It's all about saying, hey, I've got this offering, this solution for a challenge or a problem that people in the world have, and I want to do my best job to give it a chance to offer value to whoever might need it or want it. That's what it's all about, right? So the first thing is really building that infiltrated self-confidence around who you are, what you're doing, what you're offering, and really believing in yourself and your ability to deliver in whatever it is that you're doing, and your ability to believe and love the products or the services that you're selling. If any of those things are rocky, you got to start there, right? You absolutely have to start there. Salespeople all over the planet, the one thing that they're working on all the time is themselves, right? Because it's a challenge. You're constantly in a state of vulnerability because you're constantly making offers. You're constantly hearing no, which is always going to have a subtle grate against that egoic part of our personality. So we have to build this resilience to be able to show up again the next day. I always think about that Japanese proverb when I think about selling. It's fall down 7 times, get up 8, right? You got to keep showing up. So it's incredibly vulnerable to be in that position. So if you don't have a degree of self-confidence built in, and you're constantly working on that muscle on the inside, then it's really challenging on top of an already challenging career that you're entering into. So I think remember that first and foremost. Sales is all about relationships. People love to buy from people they know, like, and trust. The first person you're selling is you, and the first person you're selling to is yourself. Right? Because from there, you've built this foundation from which everything that launches has a really good air of positivity, of confidence, and there's far less attachment to the result when you believe in yourself. Because fundamentally, what's underneath all that is your awareness that there's more than enough to go around. There is absolutely more than enough customers. There's more than enough opportunities to have conversations, so you don't get so stuck and attached to it, making it has to be about this person or that person. It's like your energy opens up when you believe in yourself and what you're doing. And then it's just about having conversations and getting to know people and building relationships and understanding, not just what do they need, like sort of on a surface level, but like what is it that they're really buying underneath it. Because the other thing is people make decisions emotionally. Human beings make decisions emotionally. So nobody buys features, they buy solutions, they buy benefits, and really they buy feelings. They buy what they think is going to make them feel good. So the cool thing is that, yeah, features are important, but when they're really important is after somebody's bought something. Because post buyers can become exceptionally great champions for products and services, because that's when they start to justify their purchase decision based on the features of the products and services. So you'll hear people talk a lot about features after they've bought something. Right? They buy it for the feeling, or they buy it for the solution, and then they tell you all about the analytics, all about the features. So here's another thing about the concept about sales being about building relationships. It takes time. I wore my red shirt in honor of one of my first sales guides mentors. when I was working in food service distribution sales, and I wore it because she used to wear, we all knew it was her red closing dress. So whenever this gal would come into the office in this red dress, we all knew as the sales team that she was going into a meeting that day where she was actually going to make the offer. She's going to ask the question about whether or not the customer was going to bring their business to our organization with her as the representative. And notice she didn't wear the red dress every single day. Why? Because it takes time to build a relationship, right? It's not, you don't just go straight in for the kill, if you will. You really want to build a relationship with somebody, because that's the concept around people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, that idea, right? So she didn't wear the red dress every single day because she didn't try to close somebody every single day. And you guys all know probably that have been following on, like Gary Vaynerchuk is one of my favorite people. I just love his energy. But he has a book called Jab, 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 Hook. And the idea there is that for him, it's all about add value, add value, add value, add value, and then ask, right? And do not confuse the two. So when you're building relationships, when you're getting to know people, when you're starting to understand what is it that they really need and want, and does your product or service provide that solution for them? Does it give them what it is that they really want? Because if it doesn't, why would you make an offer to them? It's A, it compromises your brand, and B, it's probably a definite no that you could use somewhere else to build your own resiliency, where there's somebody that actually doesn't even want what it is you have to offer. But the concept here is that when you're closing, when you're asking, be clear that you're asking, right? Some people will ask, well, how do I disguise like an ask, in the way of adding value? It's like, you don't disguise it. When you're adding value with no attachment and you're getting to know people and you're building relationships and you're starting to develop that trust, that's what you're doing. You're not asking for the sale. But when you're asking for the sale, ask for the sale and be clear about it. Because you don't want it to be gray or muddy. You really want to make sure that you are adding value, building relationships, creating trust. But when it's time to ask the question, put it out there and ask the question. Which again reminds us, it takes time. It takes time to build these relationships, right? And I always remind people, yes lives in the land of no. You have, if you're not getting no's as a salesperson, you're not asking, quite simply, right? So here's an acronym I love to use when I think about selling. I call it sold out selling, SOULD. Because for me, sales is all about being of service, and that's what the S is all about. And every day I go out into the world and I remind myself that what I'm here to do is be of service. I'm not here to force anybody to do anything. I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm here to listen, which by the way is the absolute number one skill you need to develop in sales. And not just hearing, not just listening to the words, but really being able to understand what's going on behind the scenes for the person. But it's all about being of service. Right? Listening, providing solutions, providing value, reminding people that you've got an answer for their question, or that you have a way of providing a solution for their problem. The O is all about making the offer, right? Which is that idea that yes lives in the land of no. If you don't make an offer, if you don't ask the question, right? People are not gonna ask you. U is all about understanding your customer. Right? Understand them on the deepest level possible. It's that idea of investing first before you ever ask for anybody to invest in you. If you don't make an investment in people, if you don't take time to get to know them, if you don't really understand what it is that they need, what they're buying, then I don't think you deserve to make that sale. Right? Understand your customers deeply so you can continue to refine your process, continue to add more and more value, and make that customer experience the highest possible level for them. They deserve that, and you deserve that. It builds your brand, it builds your reputation, it makes the whole experience wonderful for both sides. So I really believe that we always need to be understanding our customer, which leads to the L, which is all about learning. Learning and listening, listening and learning, right? You're always just constantly trying to pick up on the cues and the challenges and the things that people need and want, and why people are doing what they're doing, what they value, what they're really buying, right? Because they are buying solutions to their problems. They're buying good feelings. They're buying benefits, right? Which speaks to solutions. So really understand what it is that they're buying, so that you can continue to present your offer in a way that is very valuable to them. And then lastly, deliver. We have to deliver. We have to do what we say we're going to do, always. Right? There's nothing that kills you a brand faster, especially a personal brand as a salesperson, than not doing what you say you're going to do. Right? So always deliver. And deliver in a way that has no attachment to the end result, right? You cannot show up as a salesperson attached to the sale. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't show up intending to sell. It doesn't mean that you don't prepare in the best to the best of your ability with the answers to the questions, the product knowledge that you need, excuse me, that's going to be able to allow you to show up with a huge degree of confidence, right? Which is that energetic transfer that people like to be in a relationship with, right? It means you do all of that work to prepare as best as possible with the intention of providing value, adding service, giving people what they need and want. But you don't have an attachment to the outcome, because when you get attached to the outcome, that's when that icky feeling is there, right? And we've all been on the receiving end of that kind of icky feeling where you're like, I don't know what it was about that person. I didn't get a good feeling about them, right? And they could have the best, it could be exactly the product that you wanted to buy for the reasons that you had to buy it, but there was just something about that person that felt kind of, gave you the no feeling, like an aversion, a repelling kind of feeling. And that's because when people are really attached to making that sale, we feel that energy and that vibration, and it is very off-putting. Right? So you don't want to be attached to the outcome, but you want to be attached to your actions. You want to be attached to your process. You want to be attached to doing the work, right? Which is all about a couple of things. So attached to process and attached to preparation. So these are things like, doing a really good job of understanding your customer avatar or your customer profile. Who is it that you're selling to? What are their likes and dislikes? What do they value? What's important to them? What do they read? What do they consume? All of that information really gives you a tremendous amount of indication about how they'd like to be sold to, specifically what it is that they're buying, right? So you can do all kinds of work before you ever even enter into a conversation with a person that helps you understand the profiles of the people that you want to do business with, right? Your sales funnel, right? If you're not measuring what you're doing in terms of your process, then you're missing a tremendous amount of information that's going to give you an indication about where you need to do more work, right? Do you have an easy time identifying markets and identifying people that could use and benefit from whatever it is that you're selling? Right? If you have a hard time doing that and identifying that, then it's time to revisit the whole prospecting idea, right? Where are the people that need and want and would see value and benefit in whatever it is that you're selling, right? If you have no problem, you can make a list every day of the week of 100 people, you probably don't have a prospecting challenge. But when you do enter into a conversation, right, and you're adding value, you're building a relationship, there's that whole piece that happens in the middle, and then you throw your hook, right? There's the ask. You have to eventually put that out on the table, right? And so then you're measuring how many times do people say yes versus no, right? So you can start to really understand a lot of intel about your process and where you might need to refine things, right? So do you need to refine the prospecting component? Do you need to refine the conversation when you actually make the ask, right? And then once the sale is made, we're not done. I think a lot of people really miss the boat on the whole customer experience post-sales transaction. We have to make sure that it's not about us, it's about them. Right? So what's their experience throughout the entire process, including after they've bought something from us, right? So really being able to close the loop. I think gratitude is the absolute greatest energetic vibration to live in, period, but especially for salespeople, right? Because we can be really forward focused, like where am I going next and who am I selling to next and what's happening next? And we can miss the whole component of really being grateful for all those people that have believed in us and that have invested in whatever it is that we were offering or selling, right? And I think constantly being in a state of gratitude and expressing that gratitude for sales transactions is a component that a lot of people don't spend enough time on, right? It's part of closing the loop. with this whole customer experience, but it's also part of maintaining the relationship with people. And when you do that really well, and it is all about being of service, it's so funny because then again, back to the beginning, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. When all of a sudden something pops up for them and they need something, you're the one they think of. Or even better, if the things that you're selling is more of a one-time or a much slower burning thing, they become wonderful champions, advocates for you, for your brand, for your product, for your service, right? Because they've had this exceptional experience all the way through. And oftentimes, even people that don't buy what it is you're selling, if you do all the things I'm talking about, you really build the relationship, you know your product, you understand why people buy it, you present it in a way that's to add value and be of service. Even when they don't buy it, they often end up being huge champions of you. And they often end up marketing your products and services to other people, and they end up sending them your way, right? So every interaction with somebody is an opportunity for you to make an impact, right? And so if you're not attached to the outcome, and you're only attached to that whole process of making an impact, then that's still valuable to you and to them, right? So it takes a lot of the pressure off. The only thing that matters is if you can check a sales box, right? No, that's not true. What matters is, did I make a difference? Did I add value? Was I of service wherever it was possible, right? Did I take as much responsibility for my elements that I can bring to the table, right? And did I constantly move the needle in terms of increasing my ability to do that, right? By constantly working on myself. People buy feelings. They buy emotionally, and then they justify their decisions analytically, right? The people that know the most about the features are people that just bought something, right? They bought the car because of the way it made them feel, and now they know everything about all the safety features. They didn't buy the safety features. Sorry, Volvo. They bought the way it made them feel, right? And then they become the experts in the safety features. Did you know, right? And they'll be the ones that'll tell you everything, which is great because then they become marketers, right? Because they know everything about the features, which is awesome. It reminds me, there's a great book by Stephen Pressfield. It's actually written for creatives and for writers, and it's all about how procrastination really gets in the way of us sitting down and doing the work. And that's actually the biggest challenge, is sitting down and doing the work. I think a lot of reasons. I think subtle forms of sabotage sometimes in the subconscious. When we're really doing well and we're succeeding and we've just made a sale, there is oftentimes a stretch, right? We've grown to a version of ourselves that we once weren't at, and sometimes that, if we haven't done the inner work to readjust our self-image internally in terms of our confidence, we'll sometimes do things behaviorally that will set us back to who we were. So I think, again, this is about personal growth. And so knowing that when you grow, you step outside of your comfort zone. And if you haven't kind of tweaked your internal thermostat to be ready for that, you might find yourself behaving in ways that seem sort of counterintuitive or counterproductive to what you're trying to do. And I think there can be a subtle form of self-sabotage. Also, sometimes it's not the sexy work, right? Keep in mind, you got to wear multiple hats. The really fun interactions are when you're with people and you're engaging in conversation and you've just provided somebody a solution, or you've just made somebody feel really good. Like, that's the really sexy work. Sitting down and doing the follow-up, sitting down, managing your sales funnel, right? That's not the fun stuff, but it's absolutely mandatory. Like everything, you've got to be willing to do the little steps that move the needle so that you can enjoy the really fun parts that are all about being of service and connecting with other human beings. A couple things. First of all, be aware that it doesn't have to be a super short time frame, right? You might initially meet somebody in a super short frame of time. So the things I think about are how am I going to be able to continue the conversation after this, right? I was just at a dinner the other night, where there are 65 women in the room, incredible women. There's opportunities to connect, and probably all would fall into what I would call my ideal client avatar from an initial perspective, right? High achieving, high performing women that are doing exceptional things with their life. These are the kinds of women I like to work with in my own coaching practice. That doesn't mean they would all be a fit, because they wouldn't, just simply personalities, etc., all kinds of reasons. But if I were to go into that situation thinking, okay, I've got 2 hours to meet everybody and connect and build a relationship and whatever, first of all, that would put way too much pressure on me, and I'd be one of those kind of awkward people, which reminds me of a time I was at a conference and a woman literally was walking down the breakfast line with a sheet of paper, perforated business cards, ripping one by one off and just handing them to people in the line. I mean, I guarantee you every single one of us just threw her business card in the recycling right after, because there was no connection, right? So I knew I wasn't going to be able to meet all 64 women in 2 hours, so I concentrated on the people at my table. We had conversations, we connected, and found a way to follow up with each other afterwards. For those of us that it made sense, like, oh, hey, let me get your card and let's carry on the conversation. It was so great meeting you, right? And then you follow up with an email, and you might have a coffee, and you might have a conversation. So I think keep in mind that initial point of contact, even if the context and timeline is short, that's not all you have to really build a relationship. So make that initial connection there, and know that there's opportunities for you to follow up with people afterwards when that makes sense. And that being said, in the reverse order, sometimes that's all it takes, right? You click with somebody, you have a great conversation, and you build great rapport and are able to energetically connect right on the spot and whatever it is that they need and they want, and you're able to do something right there and then. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen or don't let it happen if it unfolds naturally, but don't put pressure on yourself that you have to build a relationship, make the sale, close it, sign, seal, deliver, put the thank you card in the mail on your way home, because I think that's just unrealistic and too much pressure. So this is your model is booking and selling at a trunk show, for sure. And there's going to be opportunities to do that, because you've also had a chance at a trunk show to be able to build some rapport and to be able to present what it is that you do and what it is you want. And you can subtly, I think in that opportunity when you're doing a group presentation, you can put subtle elements in there that are going to be able to speak to the women in the audience about why they might want to get engaged with you, after the fact. So you can say something, to the effect of, for those of you that love this and you'd love to have a shopping spree of your own, these are some of the greatest opportunities to get your girlfriends together that you haven't seen for so long. So you start planting seeds, right? Again, what are people buying? They're buying connection. They haven't seen their friends, right, for too long, because life is busy and everybody's going in a million different directions. So you're selling them an opportunity to reconnect with their group of friends. You're selling them an opportunity to have a feel good, right? Again, so keep in mind what it is they're buying and how you can start to plant those seeds, and then make it easy. For any of you that are interested, let's connect after, or come and see me in the break or whatever. Like, give them some direction about how it is that they could take a next step with you. But again, I think 10% of people in the room might do that. So the question is, how are you going to create some kind of connection or rapport and an opportunity to have a conversation with the other 90% of people in the room that won't take that initiated step with you, right? The lady with the biz cards in the line, I know, right? I felt really bad for her, because I admired her hustle, right? I think she kind of took the information of like, okay, I've got to be out there hustling. I got to make sure I got it done. So she got the content. She missed the context, right? And so, yeah, you missed, I don't even know who you are, and I don't really care now, because I don't know how much you care about me, because now you've just handed me your business card, and we have no context about why I would ever follow up with you, right? So yeah, I know I felt bad for her in that moment. And, hey, that's how we learn. We make mistakes. I hope somebody pulled her. I mean, in retrospect, I wish I had had the courage in that moment to go and find her and pull her aside and say, listen, I admire your hustle, but here's where I think you're missing the mark. But, yeah, it happens. A couple of things. I mean, quite simply, you can ask. You can say, hey, I would love to absolutely offer this presentation, but what I really like is the ability to be able to answer your questions live, to really understand what things are popping up for you. So with your permission, I'd love to come in and present to you live with the intention of sending you a follow-up by email for your consideration. And they might say no, and it is what it is, right? I mean, again, we got to remember it's about them. So if they prefer to get it by email, and you can ask them. You can also ask them. You can say, it's really my preference to be able to get together in person, across the table, and be able to give you the presentation live. Is there any particular reason why you want me to send it to you by email? Because maybe there is a reason. Maybe they've got to go present it to the board first, right, before they would be able to get approval to bring you in and present. Like, maybe they have to shortlist, maybe, right? So I think, again, going back to sold out and the understanding, ask the questions so that you can understand why it is they want you to do that, so that it's not just about us wanting to present live, it's about us understanding why would they want us to send it by email. Because again, I think it shows you care what's that all about for them. You're still asking for what you want, but you're not attached to it being that way. So if they absolutely are adamant it comes by email, you say no worries. Would it be possible for me to follow up with you a couple of days after in person just to answer any questions that you might have about the proposal? So you can keep asking for what you want and need, knowing that they can always say no. But I think that's probably the best way to handle it. Ask for what you want, see what else you can learn about it and understand. I'm going to finish with one last little thing. I'm going over time, but I don't care. I love this stuff so much. The chocolate cake story. So many of you guys on here have heard me tell the chocolate cake story, but I'm going to tell it anyways because I love it so much. I first heard this from my colleague Felicia Lee. So Felicia, if you're watching this later, shout out to you, girl. Thank you for such a wonderful visual. But here's the concept around the chocolate cake story. So imagine you're having a dinner party and you're inviting all over your friends and couples dinner party, whatever. It's going to be some people you know, some people you don't know well, etc., etc. And they're all coming over for dinner. You make a beautiful dinner, you use all organic ingredients, etc. And for dessert, you make a gorgeous, beautiful chocolate cake. Now, would you hide the chocolate cake in the pantry, hoping that post-dinner somebody might say to you, do I smell chocolate cake? Did you make a chocolate cake for dessert? Or would you, post-dinner, pull out your chocolate cake and plates and forks and say, would anybody like a piece of chocolate cake for dessert? Right? This is about making an offer. You do everything you can to be of service. You make a beautiful chocolate cake because you want people to have a wonderful post-dinner sweet tooth indulgence at your dinner party. You want them to feel good and feel taken care of and have a wonderful experience with you, right? But if one of your girlfriends or guy friends said to you, actually, Heather, I've just found out that I am type 2 diabetic and I can't have more than 7 grams of sugar a day, so unfortunately I'm going to have to turn you down on the cake. So if they said that, would you tie their hands behind their back and start shoving cake down their throat saying, I made this cake for you, I wanted you to eat it, right? No, of course you would never do that. You might say, oh, no problem. I've got some pineapple or I've got some strawberries. What about fruit? Is there anything else I can offer you? Right? Because ultimately your objective is to be of service, is to provide value, is to be of benefit to them. You're not attached to it being the chocolate cake, right? Alternatively, now that you know that, the next time you have this group over for dinner, you have an opportunity to be more prepared. Right? Because you have more information about that person and what their true needs are. So it's such a great little story to illustrate a bunch of different key points. Number one, don't be attached to the outcome. You make the chocolate cake with the best of intentions, you use the best ingredients, you love it, you pour your heart into it, and you offer it when you're ready, right? With absolutely the best of intentions for that chocolate cake to make somebody feel great, right? If they say no, you learn something, right? You would never force it on anybody because that's not what you're all about in the end. It was never about the chocolate cake. It was about making people feel good. Yeah, not being attached to the outcome is key, and it's so hard, okay? This is tough because we do all that work with the intention of going in. And by the way, it's a stinger when we hear no, and you do have to give yourself an opportunity to lick your wounds a little bit, because if you didn't care, if you weren't emotionally invested, then that would be really strange. And so if you're emotionally invested and you care, of course it hurts a little bit when you hear no. That's why I go back to the Japanese proverb, fall down 7 times, get up 8. But give yourself a chance. Give yourself 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, whatever it takes for you to just kind of pick yourself back up and show up again fully with the best of intentions and the best energy and the best vibration that you can offer again of service the next day.